December 14, 1934. A man lies in a hospital bed on Central Park West in Manhattan, 72 hours into his fourth detoxification. He is 39 years old. He weighs maybe 120 pounds. His doctor has already told his wife the prognosis: insanity or death. The man has been receiving hourly doses of a drug derived from deadly nightshade, a plant that European witches once rubbed into their skin to fly. His pupils are dilated to the edges of his irises. His throat is so dry he can barely swallow. His body is cycling through alcohol withdrawal and anticholinergic delirium at the same time. And somewhere in that chemical storm, he opens his mouth and cries out to a god he does not believe in. If there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything, anything. And the room fills with light. His name is Bill Wilson. What happens next will reach 100 million lives. We're getting ahead of the story, though. Before the light, there was the dark, and the dark lasted a long, long time. Wilson was born on November 26, 1895, in East Dorset, Vermont, in a room behind a bar. His parents divorced when he was 11. Both left. His father headed west. His mother went to Boston to study medicine. Bill and his sister Dorothy were handed to their grandparents and told to make do. That wound never closed. He grew into a tall, charismatic young man with a desperate hunger to be somebody, what he later called his #1 psychology. He entered military service in 1917, married Lois Burnham, and at an officer's dinner in New Bedford, Massachusetts, he picked up his first drink. He later wrote, "I had found the elixir of life. The barrier between me and the rest of the world had come down." Through the 1920s, he rode Wall Street like a man who believed his own luck was a law of nature. Then the 1929 crash fused career destruction with accelerating alcoholism, and the spiral began in earnest. By 1934, Wilson was consuming over 2 quarts of whiskey a day, 40 pounds underweight, unemployable. Lois worked at a department store to keep them alive. His doctor, William Silkworth, a quiet, gentle neurologist who had treated over 40,000 alcoholics, told Lois her husband was hopeless. He would die of heart failure during delirium tremens, Silkworth said, or develop permanent brain damage, perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give him over to the undertaker or the asylum. 4 admissions to the Charles B. Towns Hospital, 4 failures, and then, late in November 1934, a hinge. An old drinking companion named Ebby Thacher appeared at Wilson's Brooklyn apartment. Sober, clear-eyed, radiant, Wilson offered him gin and pineapple juice. Ebby refused. He looked at Bill and said simply, "I've got religion." Wilson was repelled by the God talk, but stunned by the change. Here was a man who had been as hopeless as he was, now sitting at his kitchen table with clear eyes and steady hands. Ebby had found the Oxford Group, a Christian fellowship built around surrender, confession, restitution, and service. He planted a framework in Wilson's mind: admit defeat, turn to God, make it right with the people you've harmed, help the next person. And then the question that broke the stalemate, Ebby asked, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" Behind Ebby's sobriety ran a deeper chain. Carl Jung had told a man named Roland Hazard that only a genuine spiritual experience could save a hopeless alcoholic. Hazard found the Oxford Group, saved Ebby, and Ebby carried the message to Wilson. Jung to Hazard to Ebby to Wilson, a chain of transmission that would eventually circle the globe. On December 11, 1934, Wilson took his last drink and entered Towns Hospital for the 4th time. What awaited him was not gentle. The Towns Lambert Belladonna Cure was a brutal 50-hour protocol. Every hour, day and night, a nurse woke the patient and administered a capsule containing a liquid mixture, 2 parts tincture of Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, and 1 part fluid extract of Hyoscyamus iniger, henbane. Both are potent anticholinergic deliriants. Both have centuries of association with witchcraft, prophecy, and visionary states. The pharmacology matters. It must be presented honestly. Atropine and scopolamine, the alkaloids in these plants, block muscarinic acetylcholine receptors throughout the brain. The result is what modern medicine calls anticholinergic delirium. Pupils dilate until they can't constrict. Ordinary lamplight appears blindingly intense. Fully formed hallucinations arise that feel absolutely real. Ecstatic or terrifying states sweep through the patient depending on their disposition. A sense of flying, encounters with presences. The dose was adjusted by watching Wilson's body. When his face flushed, his throat dried, and his pupils reached maximum dilation, the doctors paused. When the symptoms faded, they resumed. Alongside the nightshade cocktail came chloral hydrate and morphine to force sleep, strychnine every 4 hours as a stimulant, and mercury-based cathartics to purge his bowels until nothing remained. Here's the thing, 3 forces were converging at the same moment, and there's no clean way to separate them. Wilson was in the peak window for delirium tremens, roughly 48 to 72 hours after his last drink, exactly when the worst withdrawal hallucinations hit. He was saturated with anticholinergic deliriants known to produce the very kind of vision he was about to report. And he was in a state of absolute psychological surrender, primed by weeks of Oxford group ideas about crying out to God. This episode does not resolve that convergence, it holds it. As the New York Times would later ask, an alcoholic's savior, was it God, Belladonna, or both? Here is what happened on December 14, in Wilson's own words, published 23 years later in Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age. My depression deepened unbearably, and finally it seemed to me as though I were at the bottom of the pit. I still gagged badly on the notion of a power greater than myself, but finally, just for the moment, the last vestige of my proud obstinacy was crushed. All at once I found myself crying out, "If there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything, anything." Suddenly the room lit up with a great white light. I was caught up into an ecstasy which there are no words to describe. It seemed to me, in my mind's eye, that I was on a mountain and that a wind not of air but of spirit was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man. All about me and through me there was a wonderful feeling of presence, and I thought to myself, so this is the God of the preachers. A great peace stole over me, and I thought, no matter how wrong things seem to be, they are still all right. Things are all right with God and his world. The ecstasy subsided, terror flooded in. Wilson was certain he had lost his mind. He called Dr. Silkworth to his bedside, told him everything, the light, the mountain, the wind, the presence, asked him plainly, "Have I gone crazy?" Silkworth, a materialist physician and a man of science, examined Wilson carefully, and then he gave the most important piece of medical advice in the history of addiction. "Something has happened to you that I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it." Wilson later said, "If he had said hallucination, I might now be dead." The next morning, Ebby brought Wilson a copy of William James' The Varieties of Religious Experience. James gave Wilson 3 ideas that changed everything. That ego collapse at depth precedes genuine conversion. That the value of a mystical experience lies in its fruits rather than its origins. And that chemically adjacent states can be authentically real. James gave Wilson permission to honor his experience without needing to resolve the chemistry question. The compulsion to drink was not gradually weakened, it was gone instantly. Wilson later told a clergy conference that the obsession was snapped off instantly and never returned. 36 years of unbroken sobriety from a single night in a hospital room. Wilson immediately tried to carry the experience to other alcoholics. He was terrible at it. Months of preaching with no success. He led with the mystical ecstasy, demanded that desperate drunks seek the same blinding vision. Nobody got sober. Silkworth finally pulled him aside and told him to stop leading with the God talk. Start with the grim medical reality instead. Deflate the alcoholic's ego before introducing the spiritual solution. In May 1935, Wilson was stranded in Akron, Ohio, on a failed business trip. Standing in the Mayflower Hotel lobby, he heard the sounds of the bar and wanted a drink more than he wanted to breathe. Instead, he reached for a telephone. That call led him to Dr. Bob Smith, another desperate alcoholic. Wilson did not preach. He told Bob his own story, one drunk talking to another. Bob had his last drink on June 10, 1935, the date AA counts as its founding. Wilson distilled his experience into the 12 steps, written in roughly half an hour on a yellow scratch pad in December 1938. The cry of surrender became step 3, the white light became step 2, the ongoing presence became step 11. The full arc, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, became step 12. Then came the crucial broadening. Appendix II of the Big Book distinguished between sudden illuminations like Wilson's and gradual educational awakenings. The word experience in step 12 was changed to awakening to encompass both paths. A personal revelation became a portable method. 21 years sober, still suffering from chronic, crushing depression. The white light had removed the compulsion to drink, but had not cured the underlying darkness. In 1958, Wilson wrote with devastating honesty. Last autumn, depression, having no really rational cause at all, almost took me to the cleaners. On August 29, 1956, Wilson took LSD at the Los Angeles VA hospital under the supervision of Dr. Sidney Cohen, with philosopher Gerald Heard as his guide. Heard kept timed notes. At 1:00 p.m., a feeling of peace. At 2:31 p.m., even happier. At 3:15 p.m., an enormous enlargement of everything around him. Wilson's verdict was unambiguous. My original spontaneous spiritual experience of 25 years before was enacted with wonderful splendor and conviction. He wrote to Heard, I find myself with a heightened color perception and an appreciation of beauty almost destroyed by my years of depression. The sensation that the partition between here and there has become very thin is constantly with me. Wilson proposed LSD as a starter for alcoholics who couldn't achieve spontaneous spiritual awakening, not a replacement for the steps, but a tool to crack open the ego enough for grace to enter. The AA board refused. Wilson complied. But the vision that chemistry might open a door without creating what lies beyond it, anticipated by decades, the clinical psilocybin research now validating exactly that idea. A 2022 randomized trial published in JAMA Psychiatry found that psilocybin-assisted therapy reduced heavy drinking days from 23.6% to 9.7% compared to placebo. Nearly half the participants who received psilocybin stopped drinking entirely. In January 1961, Wilson wrote to Carl Jung, tracing the full chain of transmission. Jung to Hazard to Ebby to Wilson to the world. Jung replied with 3 Latin words that name the deepest paradox of addiction and awakening. Spiritus contra Spiritum. Spirit against spirit. The thirst for alcohol is, at bottom, a spiritual thirst misdirected. Bill Wilson died of emphysema on January 24, 1971. The one addiction he never conquered was nicotine. He was flawed, depressed, unfaithful, haunted by darkness his entire sober life. He asked for whiskey 4 times in his final month. He was not given it. He also built the most successful peer recovery movement in human history, all of it from a single night in a hospital room that may have been divine revelation, pharmacological delirium, neurological crisis, or all 3 at once. And that last possibility, the possibility that the chemistry opened the door and something real walked through it, is the one that makes his story genuinely sacred. What do you do with a light that might have been poison and might have been God, and saved 100 million lives regardless?